in their office.
I recognise the Honourable Member Jami-Lee Ross.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recognise you also. Mr Speaker, in my last speech in this House, I found myself in agreement with 95% of the Labour Party on the Labour bill. I hope our friends on the other side weren't expecting too much of that from myself, and we're about to return to business as usual. Mr Speaker, I cannot find myself supporting this bill from the Labour Party for many of the reasons that my colleague David Bennett outlined and that I'd like to outline tonight as well. Mr Speaker, when Labour was in government, they were doing the right thing on the minimum wage. Trevor Mallard, I understand it was, actually ended up rejecting a $15 minimum wage, and Labour's policy along the way has always been to increase the minimum wage only at the rate to maintain its purchasing power. During the good years, now that we're in a lot of strife and we're struggling and we've had the global financial crisis, Trevor Mallard, I'm told, actually opposed the $15 immediate minimum wage because they knew, Mr Speaker, that if you were to automatically jump up the minimum wage to a higher level, to $15 an hour, without doing it gradually, you actually create greater unemployment. And, Mr Speaker, we hear quite often from the other side that they believe unemployment is far too high. And yes, we'd probably agree too that unemployment is too high, and we've got plans, we've got policies that are leading to more jobs being created. But I have to say, if you are of the belief that unemployment is too high, the last thing you would be doing is implementing a policy which would immediately price 5,500 workers out of the job market. And that's exactly what would be happening. By increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour in one foul swoop, 5,500 people, we're told, would end up on the unemployment heap. And, Mr Speaker, I don't believe that that's appropriate. And, Mr Speaker, I don't believe that's what New Zealanders want to see, is 5,500 people being put onto the unemployment heap and being told they aren't able to work because they have been priced out of the workforce by this Parliament. Mr Speaker, we've got a very proud record on the minimum wage and we're happy to share it. Under National, workers on the minimum wage are actually better off than they were in under the last government. And if you take into account inflation, the after-tax income of someone on the minimum wage is 8% ahead of where it was 4 years ago under Labour. This works out to be more than $1,800 a year extra in the back pockets of the lowest paid worker. I can go louder. I can go louder too, if you like. Mr Speaker, New Zealand's minimum wage is actually near the top of the OECD relative to the average wage. Mr Speaker, if the other side really does care about jobs, then they'd actually be supporting a policy that we've got coming up very soon that would actually help more people get into work. It's the starting out wage for young workers. Mr Speaker, we know that we have to provide opportunities for employers to take on people. And, Mr Speaker, with the starting out wage for younger workers, it's in opposition to what we're talking about tonight, but, Mr Speaker, that would actually lead to more people working. And it's actually more people getting into the workforce, which is the most important issue. That's right. Getting people into the workforce is the most important issue. Pricing people out of the workforce is the last thing you should be doing. The other side wants to price people out of the workforce, Mr Speaker. We want to get more people into the workforce. And, Mr Speaker, one of the policies that we had that enabled more people to get into the workforce was our 90-day trials. Right. Did we get support from the other side? No, we didn't. But we do know that 13,000 extra jobs were created under that policy. Now, here we are with a policy we've just implemented, which allowed 13,000 people to get jobs, which allowed employers to take a risk on some people, and 40% of employers told us that if it wasn't for the trial period, they wouldn't have hired someone. The 13,000 jobs created there, and also the jobs that will be created for younger workers with a starting out wage, that's what we believe in. From our opponents on the other side, they want to price people out of the workforce. Mr. Speaker, we believe in enabling people and giving people the best opportunity to get in the workforce. We believe in a sensible minimum wage policy that we have followed for the last 4 years that gradually increases the minimum wage to enable businesses to keep up, to enable us to put more money into the pockets of everyday New Zealanders, but at a gradual rate, at a sensible rate. Mr. Speaker, I don't support this bill. It shouldn't be supported by this Parliament. It would lead to greater unemployment.
I call the honourable member Denise Roach.
Tēnā koe,
Tēnā
Mr.
koe.
Speaker. Tēnā